let's get started because everybody is here, yeah? And I will start with a short presentation of the solution, how it works, how it looks like, and what elements are actually important in this solution. And then I will give the floor to Timur to introduce the fuel level sensors. And by the end, we will be listening to our integrator from Zambia, Walter. So wireless fuel management, here you can see the icon of Bluetooth, because when we say wireless in Neomatica, when they say wireless and Escort, actually we mean the connection by Bluetooth. But once again, I would like to actually distinguish various and different types of Bluetooth, because not all Bluetooth are wireless, how strange it could sound. However, in our GPS trackers, as well as in company Escort in their wireless fuel level sensors, we are using Bluetooth low energy modules to ensure wireless connection, which has the coverage of 100 meters without any obstacles and in the direct line of sight. So Bluetooth here is Bluetooth low energy. How it works here, actually it's very simple here. You will be installing a wireless fuel level sensor in your tank, and it will be transmitting data via Bluetooth low energy to our GPS tracker. And this GPS tracker logically will be transmitting data to a telematic server. I would like to actually emphasize that today we will be going discuss the projects and actually the cases of wireless devices use based on WeAlone platform, very well known in the telematic world, and actually our integrator Walter is using WeAlone. And I know that he is very happy about this platform. Okay, so your GPS tracker should have a SIM card to transmit data. And I would like just to shortly tell you about our GPS trackers, which you can use for wireless fuel management. Actually, the only thing you should always pay your attention to is the abbreviation BLE. If your tracker has these three magic letters after its name, so it means that you have a wireless GPS tracker which you can use without any cables and connect it without any cables to your sensors. So the first GPS tracker we have for it is ADM 333. Actually, the size of this tracker you can see is just maybe a bit bigger than a matchbox, and it's very light and very comfortable to just install it and to configure it because of Bluetooth. And what it has, actually it has two slots for 2 nano SIM cards to transmit the data to the telematic server. It has 2 analog inputs, 1 output, accelerometer, battery, and the memory to actually store your data. What is special about this tracker is that it simultaneously supports up to 3 fuel level sensors. And actually, generally, the quantity of sensors, wireless sensors, supported by one GPS tracker is 8. This is the very general number which we normally give to our clients. However, if for some reason you want to connect more than 3 fuel level sensors, it's also possible. We will just be removing the other sensors from this number of 8, this general number, and as a result, you will be able to connect even more sensors. But the general number here, the standard quantity of simultaneously connected fuel level sensors is 3. So be aware of it if you are just working with our standard firmware. Okay, this is ADM 333, which is our, I would say, rather advanced GPS tracker with advanced features. The next one is smaller, and this is actually the famous ADM-07. Why I say the famous? Because it was our first wireless GPS tracker of the very small size. And this is a very basic GPS tracker. You should not expect really much from it because it does not have accelerometer, it doesn't have a battery. But as a receiver of data, when you are working with Bluetooth devices, is a really perfect solution. Because sometimes people already use advanced telematic systems, GPS trackers, GPS units for fleet management, for an advanced fleet management. However, when they want to connect Bluetooth low energy devices, they discover that their complicated GPS units do not have Bluetooth low energy modules inside. In this case, they want to buy something really affordable, and in many cases, they really choose this tiny GPS tracker because it's really affordable. It's also capable to be connected simultaneously with up to 3 fuel level sensors and more, just like ADM 333, and it has just one micro SIM and standard black box for data storage, all you need for a basic fleet management and wireless fuel management as well. So, and now I would like to give the floor to our partner from Escort, to Timur. And actually, we know you can change the slide, I think, yeah. And I think you can just even finish the demonstration of your screen, because we will be just discussing now fuel level sensors, wireless fuel level sensors. As for me, I have them. As for us, I'm sorry, I'm always forgetting about Dima. Okay, as for us, we have 3 fuel level sensors of Escort. Yes, you can see they are without any wires. They are quite long. And Timur, I have just some questions about your fuel level sensors. We all know that they just have Bluetooth low energy module inside, that they might be of different lengths, yeah. But maybe the question, the most frequently asked question, which we in Neomatica can hear from our integrators: what is the margin of error of your fuel level sensor? I know this is the really an interesting, how to say, an important issue when we are talking about fuel level sensors and all measuring devices, right? So what about your fuel level sensors? What can you say about it?
Hello guys, hello Ksenia, thank you for the question. Yeah, you are right. The core idea of that device is accuracy. So when simply say the accuracy of the fuel level sensor of capacitive type is 99%. It's simple, but it's not that simple. You see, the 99% accuracy is not related to any amount of fuel at any given time. The amount of fuel has to be you know, there are certain things need to be said. The sensor, first of all, it has to be properly installed. The second thing, it has to be properly calibrated. So 1% error margin is related to the full tank capacity. So let's say you have a fuel tank that is 500 liters. Let's imagine that. So when we do full empty calibration and when we do tank calibration, this 1% will be related to the full tank capacity. So if it's a 500-liter tank, so the 1% will be 5 liters. And when we have half a tank, when we have a quarter of the tank, this error margin will still remain 5 liters, regardless of the, you know, how much fuel in the tank. So this 99% accuracy relates to the full tank capacity. And it goes the same for all types of fuel level sensors, regardless of the manufacturer. Could be the most expensive one, could be the least expensive one. I mean, considered it's a quality made. So yeah, here we are.
Okay, that's very interesting. I think your explanation, because you explained it really in details. Because many other manufacturers just state this margin of error without any detail, and this is very important, I think, because it may really change the whole situation when you are just shedding the light onto these nuances, important nuances. Okay, and you know, actually we are now working a lot in very hot countries, and you too, I know, in Africa, and Walter knows, I think, that the temperature is really, might be really an issue when you are just trying to install something in very adverse and harsh conditions, climate conditions. So what can you say about kinds of temperature and climate restrictions which should be respected when installing your sensors?
Okay, well, as a human, what I should say, the conditions should be comfortable for the human being. So ideally it has to be the room temperature. Ambient temperatures on Earth, they don't go to the extreme measures. So whenever you should just feel comfortable doing the job, right? But as far as the sensors go, they can perform in quite extreme temperatures. So working temperatures of our sensors, mostly they go up to plus 50 degrees and they go down to minus 85. I mean, something that we don't really endure on Earth. But there is one very important point. When you, regardless of the temperature, regardless of, I mean, we're not talking about extreme climate conditions like, you know, like crazy weather conditions. So we're just imagining we are dealing with the temperature, dealing with the dust, doing it indoors or outdoors. One thing you have to make sure that fuel temperature and the sensor temperatures are the same when you are doing the installation, because all the sensors, they have temperature sensors inside of the head of the sensor, meaning like it's not exactly measuring the temperature of the fuel, but it's mostly for the thermal compensation. It's mostly for feeling an ambient temperature. So prior to installing the sensor in the tank, it's better to fill it up to make sure you have enough amount of fuel for the full tank calibration with the same ambient temperature as the sensor is. So try to avoid situations when you have you know, your sensor, when you're transporting the sensor in the back of the car, and then you come to the installation site, and then it's hot inside and it was cold outside, so the sensor is cold and the fuel is warm. So it's not going to be okay when you later, you know, you will notice more discrepancies. But generally, yes, you have to make sure you as a human being are in a comfortable you know, conditions, so to stay more focused and do the proper installation.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really important, the temperature. For our GPS trackers as well, it's important. And for hot countries, we even recommend using GPS trackers without batteries, because our problem is the presence of battery, because lithium batteries do not support very high temperatures. When I say very high, I mean temperatures above plus 60, yeah, 60 degrees. Plus 60 is not a comfortable human temperature.
No.
Yes.
I think we have a question for Tim in the chat.
Okay.
Tim, you, I think, can check it, or I can vocalize it.
Yeah,
Yes,
let me, I can see. Last question, do you want me to answer it? Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me read this out loud. Last week, temperature has raised up to 55 degrees Celsius. Shall I expect sensor will work normally even? Yes, the sensor will work normally. It will measure the fuel. It will not break. I will tell you one situation. When the sensors are being installed in the fuel transporters after each delivery, when the change of the fuel happens, let's say from gasoline to diesel, they are being cleaned with the steam. So the sensors can endure that kind of temperatures, I mean extreme temperatures. But what might go wrong in this case, the thermal compensation. The thermal compensation is designed to adjust the fuel level according to the fuel temperature, because as we know from the physics, fuel or any kind of matter expands when it's hot and it contracts when it's cold. The same goes for the fuel. So that's why the temperature sensors are inside of the fuel level sensors, you know. So we claim that up to 50 degrees Celsius, thermal compensation will work properly. Above that, we are working on some solutions for hot countries, but it might be, you know, it might take some time, maybe 2 or 3 months for us to figure out the special firmware for the hot countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think the question has been answered fully. Yeah. Actually, another very positive thing about your sensors, which our clients and I'm sure your clients really appreciate and like very much, is the lifetime of your battery, because I know that you have somehow wonderful batteries inside your sensors. Just tell us about the lifetime, actually the time of sensor work until the battery is completely discharged.
Yeah. I wish we could have taken the credit for the battery, but unfortunately we cannot, because we are not the ones making it. It is manufactured in France. The company that manufactures it is called Saft LS. So the cool thing about the battery is the compound, is what it's made out of. Like, for example, when you have your phone, this is a lithium-ion battery inside of it. So when it gets too hot or too cold, like we know phones don't like cold, the battery dies, or the battery just loses the charge. So the battery that we use in our sensors is based on a lithium cyanide chloride compound, whatever that means. I don't know chemistry that much, but I learned it from from the manual. So the cool thing about this battery is that they are designed to work in the devices that consume low amount of energy but have to work for a long time. So the self-discharge rate of this particular battery is less than 1% per year. You know the situation when you have your remote control for the TV and you don't use it for a long time, then you try to use it and you open it up and the batteries are leaking, or the battery is dead already without even, you know, you using the remote. So that's not the case with our battery, with the ones that we use. Another cool thing about this battery, that it will work in extreme temperatures. It does not afraid of cold, it does not afraid of extreme heat. So that's the particulars of this chemical compound that Saft LS, French company, utilizes in these batteries. And the lifetime, you asked, right?
Yeah, actually, is it possible to replace this battery without bringing the devices to your office, to your technical support? The client.
Yeah, it's quite possible. It's not a hard thing to do. However, the chances are you might not need to do that, because we've mathematically calculated the battery lasts 7 years. in the fuel level sensors, up to 3.5 years in the angle sensor and the temperature sensor. There was some baby diseases in the first batches of sensors when the compound formula was not right, when the battery holder was not right. So in these cases, the battery died. However, it is possible to change the battery. All you have to do, just open up the, screw out the lid of the sensor, pry the battery out with the screwdriver, put the new one back in. It has to be the battery of AA size. It has to be the battery with a voltage of 3.6 volts. Those are special kinds of the battery. It could be purchased directly from the factory from France. It could be an analog, or it could be purchased from us directly from Escort. And then you have to use automotive sealant to seal the battery back inside again. Any kind of petrol resistant, oil resistant automotive sealant will do.
Okay, I just see that Manish is here, who is using devices of both of us. Thank you, Manish, for your trust. Okay, and I think the main issue maybe is always the installation. And all these, I would say, all this trend of wireless devices is based on an easy and on an easier and user-friendly, more user-friendly installation process. However, Bluetooth Low Energy is the connection which maybe also have some rules for installation, and what general recommendations could you provide to your clients, to our integrators, to ensure a better connection between GPS tracker and fuel level sensor in this case?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. There's no more stable connection than wire. Unfortunately, we know that wires they could be damaged. They take considerably much more time when performing an installation. You have to run this wire through the frame of the vehicle. You have to drill the hole in the cab. So that that takes a lot of time, and then also you cut your hands a lot. So yes, the BLE and Bluetooth and wireless connection are supposed to help to solve these problems, but certain rules have to be reconsidered. First of all, when you see the fuel level sensor by Escort, there is a direction. When performing an installation, you have to study the manual. This is very important. And the second, you have to follow the direction of the head, because as all radio transmitting devices, Escort BLE sensors, they do have an antenna. So this antenna has to be pointed towards the GPS tracker, right? Another thing, in certain cases, when we are talking about standard vehicles, let's say you have a regular truck, when you have your GPS tracker hidden under the dashboard and you have your fuel level sensor not further than 5 or 6 meters away from the GPS tracker, it should work fine. However, in certain cases, you have to change some habits. I know some integrators that do cover the GPS tracker with the thick pieces of metal, to exclude tampering. Sometimes you have to consider changing some habits, because the core of this connection is the strength of the signal, so-called RSSI. There is we have to make sure that this RSSI doesn't fall below certain values. If it's minus 96 decibels, minus 100 decibels, things should be changed. There are different ways also. There are external antennas, as we call it, the base, which could be extended out from the GPS tracker. So if you have any kind of non-standard installation conditions, please consult with our technicians. Like, for example, there was one case when they installed a BLE sensor in the bus. So we have the GPS tracker right in the front of the bus, and we have the fuel tank right in the back of the bus. And guess what? When the bus was empty, it worked just fine. When the bus is full, the human body is very, very strong, interference agent for the BLE signal. So when the bus was full, the GPS, the BLE, sorry, signal didn't go through. So we have to consider from case to case where does it fit, where it does not fit. When we installing when installed in locomotives, they do cause a lot of we're talking about the railroad transport, cause a lot of wide spectrum interference by the sparks, sparks from the rails, sparks from the big diesel engines. So these sparks, they do interfere with all radio frequency connection around and BLE as well. So it's not for every case, but for this for the standard trucks, for the standard applications, it suits. You just have to maintain simple rules, that you can find in a user manual. That's all.
Actually, we provide the same recommendations for our wireless GPS trackers. It's not new to us. Also, we add that some other radio waves may interfere also, like Wi-Fi, for example, or something else. And I agree with you that maybe we're here to help to our integrators to change their habits a bit and change their culture in this manner, because it's really important when you start to work with wireless devices. No wires, but there are some rules which you should respect. There is a question?
Really, yes.
Yeah.
That I should interfere. We have 4 questions in the Q&A section. You may find it, Tim.
Yeah, I see it now. Okay, let me open it.
From Zane, from John, and anonymous attendee. 2 of them are about different fuel types and about some ethics.
That's great, because my next question actually will be about fuel types. So you can just continue answering these questions.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me start with the first one that I see on top. Can the sensor work for acids like alkali or acid storage tanks and etc.? The sensors are designed for the liquids that allow electric permittivity. So meaning the sensors are essentially 2 electrodes that do electrify fuel. So we know that it works fine for gasoline, for diesel, for biodiesel. It works fine for kerosene. It works fine for cooking oil. Alkali acid storage tanks, I would not think that it's suitable because for the simple fact that aluminum could be eaten could be eaten by acid. That's the first reason. And the second one, there is a certain characteristic to the fuel. It's called ppm. It's a parts per million. Essentially, these parts per million are sulfuric parts. And not all acids would contain that. If we talk about chloric acid, which consists of hydrogen and chlorine, it does not have any kind of sulfuric acids, sulfuric parts, so it could not be. Long story short, our sensors cannot be used for acid. Our sensors cannot be used for water. So those are 2 things. Second question from our friend John Grigatsevich. Hello, John. Do the sensors have any issues with biodiesel as the sensor you have is not accurate in this type of product? Okay, so this is one thing that it should work on the biodiesel, right? But there could be some issues because biodiesel is a kind of very specific kind of fuel. It varies a lot. It is very different. Even when you do calibrate for gasoline, when you go to the on some kind of gasoline or on some kind of diesel, then you go to the different gas station, which is a truth for Russia. the ppm, the characteristic that we mentioned before could be different. And with the biodiesel made out of corn and the biodiesel made out of some kind of other silo, this ppm could be very, very much different. The engine will work on both types, but the sensor might not give you accurate readings. So if you don't mind, John, I would like to discuss it later on, because we need to, our technical support needs to receive some, specific details of this particular issue, so they can, look into it and then provide you with the answer. Next question from as well, John. Are the sensors ATEX rated? They are not. We do have BLE, we do have explosion proof certification for zero zone. Zero zone, that means the zone that has constant presence of explosion, danger of explosion. So our sensors are certified based on Russian GOST standard, which is very strict. So I can say for sure it does match ATEX rating. I can say it for sure, but ATEX per se, we do not have. But however, we should look into it, because we have more and more such kind of requests. American, explosion certificate is very famous, so people know it. So we'll think about this. It costs a lot of money, but our management hears it, so they will think about this. Okay. Next question: can we get a manual after this course? Because I tend not to follow. Okay, Collins. Yes, we do have a manual. It could be found on the website. If you go to the website fmeter.ru, which is our website for Escort company, you can find the download sections, and there are the tabs for different kinds of the fuel level sensors. Just choose the desired fuel level sensor, and then you will download the manual in PDF format. Are sensors ATEX certified? Yeah, I just answered this question, and I do have the questions from Tiago. Can we use the sensor any type of liquid? Well, I answered this question already. No, not any type of liquid, not water, not acid, not anything that is very viscous. Like, for example, when the viscosity is very high, this liquid will not go in between the tubes, so you cannot really measure anything like this. So mostly fuel, gasoline, kerosene, diesel, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all questions, I think. So I think you answered some of my questions as well here, because I think it's very clear that your sensors are IP67, right?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, yes. We are talking about the most popular tracker sensors. We talk about TD150, wired models, regardless of the interface. Yes, they are IP67. As you guys might.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please. No. You please. You.
I'm always interrupted, man.
This
is my problem. Okay.
Maybe that's not a problem. Maybe that's the.
And I think, Timura, honestly, that you underestimated yourself when you said that you are bad at chemistry, because what you said now, for me, that was a kind of the whole course of chemistry about aluminium, which is something.
Yeah, well.
Really, congratulations on that. Really was wonderful as an explanation. So we were talking about various types of fuel, but we were not mentioning various types of tanks, which is important. Tell us a bit more about this, because it's really one of the most frequently asked questions as well, because there are so many various tanks. Honestly, I remember the presentation of your general director in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. That was really a wonderful presentation when he was talking about really interesting cases of using your fuel level sensors and he was really talking about these really different kinds of tanks, because they in Uzbekistan, they have very old cars and tracks, and I think you have really a good experience, rich experience in this field. So share it a bit with us.
We'll do right now. Just I want to get back because you were asking about ingress protection of the sensors. Okay. You know, we got IP67 for the wired ones, and we got IP69 for the wireless. It just recently had been rated. You can find this on the website. And ingress protection of six for the dust and 9 for the water is the maximum possible. So it was possible due to the absence of the wires, because obviously the wire was the weak point of the sensor for the water under pressure to go inside. So without wires, it's possible to get the highest rating. But now about tanks. When we say that we are into the fleet monitoring with the fuel level sensors, not exactly. We are more in the tank monitoring, right? So we know there are different kinds of vehicles and stationary tanks. When you go to India, they have tuk-tuks, which have very short, you know, tanks, like very wide and short. When you go to Belarus, we have Belas. When we go to you know, South Africa or Nigeria, we have stationary, you know, we have portable filling stations and things like that. So the main thing is the length of the sensor. We guarantee accuracy of 99% from when you can cut the sensor as short as 15 centimeters, and then you can extend it up to 6 meters. So within this range, we do guarantee this accuracy. I mean, considered all the things has been said, you know, way before. But also what matters is the shape of the tank. We know when we talk about the trucks, when we talk about stationary tanks or fuel transporters, we deal either with rectangular or cylindrical or oval, or that's all, basically. You know, those are the shapes that we deal with, right? So they are linear, they are normal, as we say, so they could be monitored easily without any issues. However, we do have quite a lot of requests regarding monitoring of light cars, like light commercial vehicles or even personal cars. So as we know, modern light commercial vehicles and modern light cars, they have very crazy shapes of tanks. You know, they are made differently. I used to have a car made in 1999, and it had a rectangular shape of the tank. You know, it was just engineered that way. Nowadays, I have the car that is made in 2016, and the tank, the gasoline tank, is just fit in whatever space was left. So it looks like a snake, you know. So for this particular types of tanks, you cannot really use the fuel level sensor as we used to. You know, we cannot really get a fuel graph. The place of on the top of the tank where you can install the fuel level sensor does not necessarily above the lowest point. For example, when we can install it here, but the lowest point of the tank is here. So we have the dead zone. So there are quite a lot of things to consider. It works best for the rectangular shaped tanks. It works best for cylindrical shaped tanks, for the trucks, for the buses, for the big commercial vehicles. So that's what it's mostly designed for. For the light vehicles, if it's possible to install, you will not get a proper fuel graph. However, you can get the discrepancy, meaning when it's stable, when it stands, when the vehicle stands, you can get how much fuel was filled and how much fuel was drained. But when you want to understand if you have, for example, diesel engine with a return pipe, and then you see the increased consumption of the commercial truck, then you can say, oh, well, the engine is off, I need to maintain it. Or maybe the driver is using the return pipe from the tank, you know, in somewhere else, just steals the fuel, essentially. With the light vehicles, with the personal cars, it's not possible to do so. But with all other kind of regular tanks, it's quite possible, yes.
And what about customization of your sensors? Do you provide custom solutions? Do you adapt your sensors?
We do. We do. Since we are the factory, it's possible to, there are quite a few types of customization. There is a physical and there is a software, right? So physical, you can adapt. I mean, even cutting the sensor is a customization in a way. You can cut it to the size, right? In certain cases, you cannot install it on the top of the tank, so you install it on the side. We know some guys from Kazakhstan that they bend the sensor, but you have to make sure that the electrodes don't touch each other. So they would fill up the sensor with salt, I mean, they go crazy ways. Another type of customization is the firmware. For example, when we talk about BLE sensor, they do transfer data every second to the tracker, but they measure every 10 seconds. So there is a certain non-linearity. It's not non-linear, when you compare to the wired sensor, right? So some guys don't like it because they say, well, we use another model which is wired and it was much smoother. So what kind of option do you provide? We can give some custom firmware, it's possible. But as far as for custom solutions on the hardware side, it takes time because we cannot just make something and then just deploy it because it might not work. We don't know how, we haven't tested it. So generally the cycle of the new product from the idea to the production is 6 to 8 months. Yeah, that's how long it takes for the sensor for the custom solution to be made, to be tested, tested on the field, and then perhaps deployed. So yeah, but customization is quite possible.
So okay, and what is the history of TD Escort TD BLE? How long has it been existed already in the market? I mean, globally, in Russia and in other countries.
We both has been a witness of that. Actually, this is 2020 right now. In 2018, I mean, Escort invented the sensor a bit before. The idea was on paper for quite a long time. And the first testing samples were there in 2016, 2017. But in reality, the wholesale, the whole manufacturing has started 2 years ago. That's and we both know some guys in India that we shipped quite a few of those sensors. And time takes for people, for the sensor to gain trust. This kind of equipment has to be on the market for quite a long time before more conservative people, trust this kind of equipment. But I can say, like in India, for example, beginning of this year, I mean, not considering all the pandemic and all this virus situation, but before that, our fuel level sensors went 50% wired, 50% wireless. So people are shifting towards these solutions because they like the ease of installation. But yeah, to answer your question, it has been on the market approximately for 2.5 years.
Okay, I think this is almost the same lifetime that our wireless GPS trackers have also, because I think that we also started the mass production of them 2 years and a half ago. Yeah, this is the real trend now. Yeah.
You can see everybody now. Look, you guys were one of the first ones. As far as I know, Escort BLE protocol was supported by Neomatica the first, right? So now we have quite now we see some of our competitors making these BLE sensors that we were very surprised to find out about, like, wow. So, and they're compatible with the same trackers. It's like, this is a trend. It's the phone without buttons. So everything is going to go wired. But the advantage, particularly for you guys, and I think for us as well, that we've been one of the first ones, and we've been through these baby diseases already. So these other guys, they might hit these diseases now. They might, they might be a bit surprised how wireless technology needs a lot of tinkering, a lot of fine tuning. So that's not an easy thing to do. Yes.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much, Tim, to share your valuable knowledge with us and your experience, and all the explanations were very, very highly professional and really detailed. Now I would like to still, there are still questions.
Yes.
To you. Okay.
Still a couple of questions. One from John, sorry, again. He's asking about the available sizes of the fuel level sensors, and you, I think, may find it in the chat. Question about the contact of the sensor.
I mentioned my team soon. One of the questions about the chat is live. It's like, wow, it's boiling.
Yes.
Okay, so by default we are making sensors 1 meter long. That's just the cheapest way to do it. Metric system. The machines are set up this way. The transportation is set up this way, and the step is 50 centimeters. So you can order the sensors from us 1 meter, 1.5 meter, 2 meters, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and so on. As one piece, we can make them 3 meters long, and then to extend them further, you have to order special collet connection that we do also provide. So maximum I've sold is 6 meter long sensors. We know some situations when people would extend them up to 9, up to 10, for some stationary tanks. But here, I mean, it's more of an experiment, I shall say, because we ourselves never tested it in such conditions. But the accuracy, even 1% for such big tanks, is a huge volume. So it's more of the experiment. But yes, from 15 centimeters long up to 6,000 millimeters long, it's quite possible. So what was another? There was is it CE certified? Okay, CE, we are talking about European Conformity Certificate. Not yet. We have filed for this for the European Conformity Certification, and yes, they will help us with the radio frequency test report for importing. Yes, I understand you completely. That's to participate in certain governmental and certain big projects, you do need this test report. So we are in the process of getting it. However, we are. It takes time, especially this pandemic situation threw us back. We've expected to have it already, but now European market, I mean, we have to do it in Europe, so it's just a bit set back. So I expect in June or July, we should get back on track with this. Maybe by fall we will have it. What is the potential for Indian market? Well, you tell me. Because I think it's quite big. As far as I mean, we talked about the potential in these figures. We've been told that there are 17 million vehicles on the roads of India, and only 800,000 of them is connected in any kind of way, meaning there is a GPS tracker or something. And as far as the fuel level sensor, nobody really knows. But when I was in India for 3 or 4 times, I do not see many. I see fuel tanks with locks. I see fuel tanks with without anything on them, but I do not see many fuel level sensors. So the potential is huge. The only thing that has to be done, it's a proper installation. So the main challenge is proper installation. And maintaining the standards. Another question: is sensor battery powered with chemistry? Yes, it is. What is the life of sensor in condition of monitoring? Inconsistent monitor. Okay, I understood. The sensor battery is chemical. Yes, obviously, lithium thionyl chloride. As I mentioned, perhaps if you haven't heard, it is designed by French company Soft LS. The life of the sensor in these conditions, in constant monitoring conditions, has been mathematically calculated to last 7 years. I'll be completely honest with you. We don't know for the fact. The sensors have not been on the market for 7 years, but so far, considering everything the sensor is not defected, and it's on the tank and it works fine, we haven't got any requests to change the battery yet. You know, I mean, except some baby diseases, as I've been talking before, but with the battery holder and compound formula. Are you planning the sensors with internal memory to, yes, to win in situations when the signal is jammed? Yes, we are. This is exactly the problem that we've been facing when the connection is lost for any reasons. There could be jam, there could be pile of dirt on the sensor. The sensor could be too far away from the tracker, and then yes, when it will reconnect, it will send you the last value. So essentially, it might result in false fuel theft. However, we are implementing the black box inside of the sensor. So with for now, it's gonna work with a Android or iPhone application where you can get all the necessary fuel data when you approach the sensor, and then you will get all this, you know, all the fuel movement when the connection was lost. So this way, at least you would know if the sensor was jammed by the driver. But frankly, jamming the sensor is a bit more complicated than cutting the wire. So this way, at least you make sure your driver, you hire much smarter drivers. So. Will the sensor short if they are in contact with the free water at the bottom of the tank? Yes, it will. It will not short in a way that it will break, but it will send the 7,000 code mistake code. So you will receive the 7,000 code. That means there is a water or contamination with dirt. This is a signal for you to flush the tank to clean it. Basically, as when we say the sensor is virtually maintenance free, the sensor itself, yes, but you have to make sure you fill up with the proper fuel. You know, when it's a lot of dirt, when you know, like on the underneath of the fuel tank, there is a flush plug. You know, when you can unplug it and then you can clean the tank and then you can put it back on again, so it will work fine. I think I answered all the questions, did I?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we will be able to answer the other questions in the end of our webinar, because I would like to give the floor to our dear integrator from Zambia, to Walter, because it's always interesting to listen to some live people with live experience from the field, and to compare how this information relates to the information provided by the manufacturers, by the developers of this solution. And I know that actually Zambia is the country located in a very hot zone of Africa. Even you don't have the access to the sea, I think, yeah? You're just in somewhere in the middle of the continent.
Yeah, you are correct on that one. Zambia is actually a landlocked country. And
yeah.
The temperatures are quite high at times. Yes, they get to be very hot at times.
And it's interesting for this reason, because you can really share your experience with the hot temperatures. But my first question to you is, why did you choose the wireless solution for fuel management? Because still most people are using, trusting, and believing in wired solutions. What was your main reason to choose actually this wireless solution for your country?
Right. So basically, we've been dealing with fleet management solutions from as way back as 2012, and we've been having multiple issues with when it comes to fuel monitoring, because way back then we never really had that much of solutions to sort out the fuel usage by the drivers. And as you understand, obviously, almost about 60% of an operator's cost is fuel. So when the fuel is not being managed properly, it becomes a huge cost on our clients. And from our experience, we started by using wired fuel probes. From I think about 2013, 2014, we've been using wired fuel probes. But from then, the problem that we've always had with wired fuel probes is the drivers would always cut the cables. Then these are issues where even if the driver cuts the cable, that obviously when he reconnects on the system, you'll be able to tell the current fuel usage because it will drop. But then this always brings about arguments. You say, for instance, one transporter has over 500 vehicles, and then there's one guy who just cut the cable. The transporter doesn't have time to start arguing with the driver. So it becomes an issue for us as a service provider to prove if at all the fuel has been siphoned or if the fuel has actually just been utilized by the vehicle. So one of the main reasons why we decided to go wireless was because of the arguments with the drivers stealing fuel and also the durability of the wired fuel sensors. Because at times the wired fuel sensors would be passing through underneath the vehicles. When we do an installation, you have to do it right. And the wired fuel cables would actually pass underneath the truck. But then what the drivers would do, because drivers get smart, they would try to damage the equipment in the most natural way possible. They would cut off the cable ties, the cable starts playing around, and then the cable cuts on its own. And that would bring costs very high on us. So when we met you guys and we met team as well, we started brainstorming on how we could sort this out. And after a very long partnership with team and his guys from Escort, we went on to discover that it would be easier for us as a company to go for the wireless solutions, because that way the argument between us as a provider and the driver plus the owner of the fleet ends. So that, I think that answers the first question.
Yes, thank you. And the answer was very emotional. I see that your feedback is really positive about this solution, which is really very pleasant to us as manufacturers of this. And tell me, please, actually, where are you now using this wireless solution? On what kinds of vehicles? And for what kinds of tanks and what kind of fuel, maybe it's interesting.
All right. So from the time we got in touch with Tim and his team, Tim and team. Yeah, we've been having a wide spectrum of usage for their sensors and also the Neomatica BLE sensors. In that, we found that using the two sensors, we are able to actually curb all of our problems. Because earlier on, when we were dealing with yellow machines, you know, these big yellow machines, the mining machines, because here in Zambia, we're also doing management solutions for mining companies. So like at the mines, they have yellow machines and they always are skeptical about the type of installation that you do. So with BLE solutions, it makes it quite easier because these heavy machines, they do a lot of work, and if you have cables running underneath, a cable will cut and it becomes just a huge headache. You have to travel back to the mine, and those things, they only give you a certain period of time to work on them. After that, those things are working 24/7. So there's no downtime there. So we're actually using the BLE fuel sensors underground, and for the heavy machinery, the yellow heavy machinery equipment that is being used at the mine. So those kinds of heavy machinery equipment, you find that it's very effective to use the Escort sensors there, because we have the fuel probe installed in a radius with the Neomatica trackers. There's no big issue in terms of connectivity. No one is going to disconnect it. Even the equipment themselves, it doesn't matter how harsh the environment is, because we do understand it gets really crazy underneath the mines there. Just by the open pit mines, it gets crazy. So with all of that information, we are able to get consistent information from that. And then apart from the usage, we're using it at the mines for the yellow machines. We're also using the fuel sensors on our truckers, like transporters. Most of these transporters are using standard tanks, like the ones that Tim actually mentioned, and some are using crazier tanks. But then at the end of the day, it's a matter of experience in how you do these installations. When it comes to the tanks, like Tim already mentioned, there are certain tanks that you can actually just go directly and follow the steps and get the right results. And also, like you said, it's a matter of paying attention to the little detail, because just a little bit of an inch, you miss an inch, the volume is quite big. Like you need to be very careful with this installation. So at the moment, we're using the Escort fuel sensors and the Neomatica trackers on almost all of, I would say all of our fuel installations, apart from the CAN bus installations. So when it comes to this, all of our fuel installations, we're using the Neomatica trackers and the Escort trackers, because we found it more capable of handling the loads that we have locally here.
Okay, thank you, really. And as far as I could understand, you are very happy about this solution. However, I need to, and I should make you a question about disadvantages, because we are trying to provide an objective point of view as well. And you as our integrator, now you can maybe not only see positive things, but maybe there are some negative points about this solution. So advantages, we already understood it. And what about disadvantages comparing with the standard wide solution, in your opinion?
All right. From my perspective, I take it some of the disadvantages that come with fuel sensors are general. The general disadvantages that come with fuel sensors is having the capable people doing the installation. If you don't have capable people doing installation on fuel, you go back to the same job over and over again. So competence is actually one of the very biggest things when it comes to fuel installation. So as a plus and a minus for the wireless sensors, I think there was a time, there's one time when we had one situation with DIMA. There was one time when there was loss in communication between the fuel level sensor and the tracker itself. But then these are things that we've eventually learned to adapt around. And with the support we have from DIMA, it's not really hard though. So when it comes to the disadvantages so far, I would say we're still exploring those waters to look at the disadvantages that we're going to get from the Escort sensors and the Neomatica devices. The only hurdle that I would say would be if at all there could be a way of syncing the communication between the two in terms of off-base reconfiguration and off-base troubleshooting, because mostly you'd have to find that you need to go physically on site for you to troubleshoot. Like there would be instances where you'd have to physically need to go to the truck itself. If there could be a way for us to do off-base resolutions and off-base troubleshooting, because I'll be honest, most of our clients are not in the CBD. Most of our clients are very far. Like the mine, which is our client, which utilizes our solutions, is like by the border near Congo, and I'm in Lusaka. So if they have a problem, I need to send technicians over there to physically go with their phone and then connect BLE directly. So I would say that just would be the minus apart from everything else.
So this is actually the reason for which we try to arrange more and more webinars and trainings about BLE solutions, because on the one hand, I think installation and configuration process is much easier than in the case of a wired solution, but you are completely right. There are many always problems regarding competent people and qualified staff in this relation.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Walter. For,
yes.
We have a question for you, yeah?
Yes, from
Sure.
Joe,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of, with humor. Walter, do your drivers cover the head with the refractive material?
All right. I get the question that he's asking. This is something that we had experience with some time back. Usually the drivers would try their level best to try and jam the signal, but I take it's more or less like what the team said. The driver would have to be really smart for that one driver to jam the signal. So far, we haven't had any interruption in terms of connectivity with the trackers in terms of jamming, and I don't think we've had any one of those experiences so far. If at all they've been trying to cover something, it hasn't affected our reporting as of yet. I don't know if there are any other questions pertaining this or any other.
No.
I think now we can finally give the opportunity to Dima to say something, yeah, to demonstrate something, I think, yeah?
Yes.
Because this is our final part, and Dima will do, what are you going to demonstrate?
I'm going to demonstrate you how to configure the wireless fuel level sensors, how to connect them to the ADM333 BLE device.
This one.
Yes, it's actually pretty simple, and I do not even know what to say at the moment.
Watch the screen.
Yes, yes. I'm establishing the connection with the device. It's done. We're moving to periphery section. Here you can see various tabs of what kind of periphery you can connect, analog inputs to analog inputs that ADM333 equipped with output. You can enable it or disable, and the Bluetooth thing that brings us together today. So basically, we try to make it as simple as possible, the whole configuration process. So I'm happy to introduce you the button that should make it work with just one click. We are starting the BLE devices searching, and you can see we found one sensor.
You use just one button for it.
Yes, only one button. We
It's
found
very
three
simple,
sensors.
like 1, 2, 3.
Yes, that we have right here. We found even one ADM31 that located somewhere in our office. As you can see, the dBm minus 92 dBm. Yes, and that's what we got. All the data, you can see fuel level, fuel temperature, voltage, RSSI. The very same process may be conducted not with the configurator, but with the command. You can use, you can send via the SMS channel, via the GPRS channel from Violent, for example. You can read the data with the commands like, here we can see MAC addresses of the sensors we configured. The data from all three devices, and it's very easy to erase all of them just with one command to, yeah, that's actually the whole tricks we are trying to learn you, trying to
recommend you.
Yes, yes.
Because there are many, really, many tricks which we are developing and inventing for you almost on a weekly basis. Yes. And just the problem is that in most of cases, you just do not know, you are not aware of these very simple tricks, of these very magic buttons, and you just sometimes complicate your own life without this knowledge. Okay, so I think, is that all? Yeah,
I believe.
Okay. I don't know whether there are other questions. No?
I think we have not any other question.
Honestly, I have plenty of questions in WhatsApp, in other charts, but I think we will be responding to all these questions after the webinar. So traditionally, do not worry, we will be sharing the presentation of this webinar and the video, the recorded video of this webinar with all of you and with all those who couldn't attend to this event, so don't worry. And if for some reason your friends, your colleagues need also these materials, do not hesitate to actually forward them to us. We will be sharing all these materials as well. So because we are very generous. And thank you very much, Walter, for your really valuable experience, because this is the live experience from the field. These are not our words, and people always trust not to the manufacturers, but they trust normally to people who already used the solution and can say something really objective. And thank you very much, Timur, for your very professional explanations and answers. And I think that we will just continue this tradition to hold webinars together, because in my opinion, it was really wonderful, very, very explanatory, very professional and interesting.
Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Walter, for coming as well.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And if there be any questions, anyone wants to do proof of concept, they can get in touch. They let me know. I won't hide anything.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's time to say goodbye for now, yeah? And next week we will be waiting, for all of you on our webinar about our famous wireless immobilizer. So don't miss it, and we will be announcing it very soon as well. Thank you, and bye bye to everybody.